I'm just going to give it a minute to...
I always like catches up in a few seconds.
Hello, everybody. Welcome,
Hi.
welcome. And welcome to my amazing co-hosts for the read-along. Thank you so much for joining me again. So for those people who are there at the moment, I think according to the little thing on the screen, we've got 2 people watching. So thank you so much, those 2 amazing 2 people, for joining us.
One of them is probably me because I have it open.
It still counts.
That's so funny.
But I did just also because I wanted to post it, so I posted it on my community tab. So maybe
Yes, and I'll do
Thank you.
Quick tweet too while I'm thinking about it.
Nice.
Yes.
Thanks,
yeah,
everybody.
Good call. Well, because I think people. Well, you know where else I should put this now that I'm thinking about it is in the Discord. Because I think people sometimes forget if they don't have notifications turned on.
Right.
So I will post a link there too. I could have done this before we went live, but no.
That's okay. That's okay. While we're doing all this, those people that are here, please do comment and let us know that you're here. And yeah, how are you doing today? And what time is it is for you? Where are you and what time is it for you? I'm always curious. I always like to find out how much time travel I'm doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So usually going back in time. Yeah. So, and thank you so much again, Bethany and Cara, for joining me today. So those people that aren't aware, this is the Fire live show. This is the second book in the Graceling Readalong by Kristen Cashore. Graceling series. We are doing the read-along by Kristen Cashore. Yes, we all have, I think, different versions of this beautiful book.
Yes.
So the one on the screen there is the beautiful new edition. I've got the very old edition. I don't actually know when this one was published.
You know what? You know what? I think mine is like in the other room. I have the new US editions.
Ooh.
They are pretty. Yeah, I have like the old one.
Pretty. This edition, I think this is the first.
Oh, cool.
Cover. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, this is the read along for the Graceling Readalong, and of course we're reading Fire. So while we're doing all of our admin stuff, please do remember to subscribe to my amazing co-hosts. The details are in the description below. So we have, of course, Beautifully Bookish Bethany and Wild Book Garden, which is Cara. And if you're not subscribed to me already, please subscribe to me. Also, that would be amazing.
You are so close to 1,000 subscribers.
I'm so excited.
It's exciting.
I keep being that super annoying person on my other social medias and being like, please subscribe. I'm so close.
Yeah.
And it's just not working. Like, I mean, it is. People are subscribing.
But it takes time. It takes time. Yeah. But you're really close.
I know. I'm so excited. But it's one of those things where it's like, I've been excited since 900. So I'm like, no, you need to calm down.
Yeah.
It could still take a couple of months.
Yeah.
I know. There's no predicting it.
No, exactly. Yeah. But yes, it's very exciting. So I can see already in the comments that we have people talking about their having enjoyed it more the second time around. So Mr. Oh, I'm so sorry. I can never say your name. That is terrible. Rorosuri? Hopefully that's correct. 3.5 to a 4, so appreciate it more on a reread. 10 p.m. your time. Yay, I'm so glad. And Cara agreed with you. God, what am I doing? I should not be running this. I cannot talk today, apparently.
It's a lot earlier for you, though, so.
Sorry.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I actually said to my partner the same thing, and he was like, oh, maybe I should give them a reread as well, because he was the person that suggested I read these series. He was like, I think you'd like these.
Yeah.
And yeah, he kind of felt like the time he read them, I think he's only read them the once, he kind of felt like fire was like a bit of a filler between and I don't remember feeling specifically that way, but I definitely enjoyed it a lot more on the reread. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, this was my first time reading it, and I'm kind of glad we talked a little bit about it before I went into it, because I think I had an idea of what it was, and so I could really, I think because of that, appreciate what this book was doing. I like looking at reviews, I don't know how many people really understood what it was trying to do, to be honest. I feel like it was a little ahead of its time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I didn't enjoy the actual story as much as I enjoyed Graceling, which is part of why this was a 4-star. But I really like the project of this book and the way that it tackled it.
I wonder if some of the people who reviewed it and didn't enjoy it maybe as much, because it's not like, so I mean, I think it's a prequel anyway, but it's not obviously like, okay, then Graceling happens and then this happens. It's, it's in another world, and like you basically don't get the same. Yeah, so I wonder if that's people just expect something different from a book in a series than they got from this one.
Yeah, and as I said in the comments, I enjoyed and appreciated it more this time around, because the first time I read it, I gave it 4 stars as well, because I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as Graceling. And it's interesting because like I bumped it up to a 4.5 stars this time. I can't give it a 5 because I also just found the plot not quite as engaging. Like there's a little too much traveling, little too much military stuff for me. And I felt like there were like the book was a little longer than it needed to be, because there were just kind of stretches where we were waiting for like other things to happen. But I love Fire so much. Like I think I love her as a character even more than Katza. Like getting to see her like realize throughout the book that like things are not her fault, and that sometimes she made the best choice she could, and just like I don't know, like learning to have kindness for herself was just like really really lovely. And then like Bethany was saying, I really appreciate what this book was doing and the way it uses this fantasy world to look at things like rape culture and harassment and victim blaming. Like I just think that was really impressive. One thing I did remember from the first time is like I liked the romance, but I remember being like, oh, I wanted more from it. I wanted them to have more time together. And like I do still think it's less of a focus than in Graceling, but I actually liked that more than I remember too. Like for some reason I thought that it took Brigham like a while to like actually warm up to her. And I'm like, oh no, he like apologizes fairly quickly when he realizes that he's misjudged her. So I don't know why that bothered me the first time, but I enjoyed it even more this time.
I feel the same way. I mean, I'm not a huge, as you guys know, I'm not a huge romance reader, and I don't necessarily care that much if there's a romance in a book, particularly when it's a fantasy. But I remember really enjoying the romance with this one. But I still really enjoyed the romance, and I think because it felt really functional. It felt like, it's that nice slow burn, because I don't like insta love. It drives me up the wall. But like, yeah, it was not it felt legitimate, the time that it took and the way that they slowly sort of started to realize how they felt about each other, and then all of the things that were holding them back. It wasn't like miscommunication for the sake of miscommunication. Right. And there was some miscommunication in there, but I felt like it was more just timing and just, like understandable things that are in the way of he's a prince, she's a monster, like all the things that made sense for it to be in the way.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just, that whole miscommunication. Like they could have solved this if they'd said 2 words to each other 6 months ago. That would have been fine.
Yeah.
And I love how much they understand each other. Like there's that conversation where like, which is another great example of like, I'm so glad that there wasn't like this miscommunication plot line where Fire is like horrified at like watching Brigham like murder people right in front of her. And he thinks that that she's horrified of him, and she like makes him stop and understand, like, no, like we both have to do things that are bad, like for good reasons. And I was surprised, and I love this about you too, because it's going to keep you alive, and that might be bad too, but like I just, the way they like understand what each other are going through is just, it's again kind of like with Graceling, it's like considering all the horrible things that happen in these books, it's like a weirdly really healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
That's the thing, is I think these books are really nuanced in the way that they're exploring relationships, which is interesting, because I think it's been a month since I read this book now, but her childhood friend Archer, right?
Yeah.
I thought the whole thing with him was really interesting, like creepy at times, but I think it did such a good job of kind of showing this relationship that she's sort of outgrown.
Yeah.
And that has become something abusive and toxic. And I just thought that was so interesting, because I think you can see all of the red flags, but you also see how hard it is for her, because it's somebody that she has a past with and somebody she loves. And so recognizing it for what it is and figuring out how to put boundaries in place is challenging. And I just think that's such a great thing to depict, and it's done so realistically.
Yeah, definitely.
Like,
and that idea that
I understood. Sorry, Mel.
No, you're right. You go.
I was just gonna say, like, I did not like Archer.
No.
Like, he's so selfish and thoughtless, and then the way he treats Fire, as you were saying, very like toxic and controlling, even if he thinks he's doing it for good reasons. But like, I understood everything about why this relationship meant so much to Fire. Like, I bought it, even though I was like, he's the worst, you deserb so much better. I'm like, but of course this happened, you know? So
I mean, him getting like young girls pregnant, I mean, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And when Fire is like upset at his thoughtlessness, I'm like, yeah, like this is his fault. Like, he's like, oh, it's fine, like nothing bad's gonna happen. And she's like, something bad always happens.
Something
You
bad
just
will happen.
are gone.
Yeah. I really liked the way that, like we've said, the depiction of that. I really liked the way that you got the sense that he wasn't always like that. And like so many people, when they talk about abusive relationships, if you haven't experienced it, so many people will say, I don't know how you could let yourself get in that position. And I feel like this showed how, because like, people don't present, like, if you first met someone and they were obviously an asshole and abusive and awful, you wouldn't go there. So it's like, it builds and it becomes something different from and I just thought that was really well done. And like you said, then you see why it's so difficult for her, because it wasn't always like that. Which hi Jessica.
Hey Jessica.
Yeah, he totally was. I shouldn't shame him, but it was the fact that,
but also it was with 15-year-olds.
Yeah, it was like unethical.
I mean, it's like more than just that he was sleeping around with everyone, but it was with
and he was so blasé and uncaring about it. Like, he was like, nothing will. Why are you upset? Nothing would happen. Like, why do you care? It's like,
because she has empathy, you piece of trash. Like,
why do you not get what's
Yeah.
So I think he deserves shame.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of agree.
Yeah.
I do think it's so, the way that she depicts Fire with her magic and everything is so interesting, because like, people think she's like see her, I don't know, it's interesting. She is both like this like object of desire and someone who is hated. And I'm like, that is so much of misogyny, and so much of what rape culture is about power, and like I feel like there's a lot of people, I don't know, like I see some of these guys on like TikTok and stuff, these sort of like incel dudes or whatever, who they're like, they clearly hate women, but they want women. It's like, but they want them in this like objectified way, but I'm like, you don't even like women. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And I feel like that's exactly kind of how she's set up it for people because of her magic, where they're like, well, she's a monster, we hate her, we don't like her, but also we desire her. And like it's really interesting kind of that like seeing that interplay versus, you know, the couple of people who see her as a full person and the difference.
Yeah. And I think also like Nash is a really interesting character as regards that as well, because at first he kind of seemed like he was much more like Archer. And he's still like, I still have complicated feelings about him, but he does try like as the book goes on, and I really like that Fire calls him out when he's not trying. Like when he says, he's like, I can't control myself around you, and she's like, you don't want to control yourself.
Yeah.
And I thought, like we were talking about with nuance, I think it was really interesting that we have him introduced this way. You know, he like forces himself on her a couple of times, and still for the most of the rest of the book he's like portrayed as more likable, like in a way that felt like it felt like thoughtful, like not like we were supposed to like excuse what he did, but like, okay, sometimes people can change and be better if they actually want to, and if they acknowledge that it's like their responsibility. I thought that was really interesting because his behavior contrasted with Archer, who like theoretically is more respectful of Fire in the way that he doesn't like, I mean, he doesn't like touch her when she doesn't want him to, but like not in the way he treats her, you know?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, this is, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. One thing that I just thought was kind of interesting, and this isn't like a huge like a huge part of the book, but it kind of also touches a little bit on like the way that young girls can be sexualized in some scenarios, because she even has her dad telling her like she can't behave certain ways because it's like, I don't know, which is just interesting to me because I feel like especially in more conservative communities you get a lot of that, of like dads telling their daughters like you can't do this because you know when they're still a child, because it's too sexual, it like will come across as too sexual even though it's not intended that way or something. And I just think that's not great.
The problem is with the grown men who are
finding it that way.
Exactly. And I mean, in her case, like she had a dad who was kind of creepy about it, but like I think even when like the intentions are good, which like I think I had experience with that, of like being told things like when I shouldn't have been told them at that. I don't know, like I think it's, you gotta be careful with that.
Yeah.
Be careful who you put the blame on, who you like
the responsibility of behavior is on like the people doing things, not
exactly.
I also really like, oh sorry, go ahead, Mel.
I was just gonna say I thought it was really interesting with that as well, the dad being a monster, and how, and then her being a monster, but just the differences because male and female. And you know, he was able to be a lot more kind of controlling, and he was the abuser, and he was this and what have you. Whereas her being female, she was considered to be in more danger from people, and again it was put back on her, like you know, you've got to watch what you do, and you've got to do,
like if it's your fault if someone crosses your boundary, which is like, I mean, rape culture in a nutshell.
Exactly. And that whole thing of they can't control themselves was exactly rape culture, just straight
and
up.
we see like Cantrell obviously is an incredibly unethical person, so like there's a difference in like he views the attention as like always good. But I also feel like there was still this like this difference in like Fire. It is like a danger to her because of what you were talking about, Bethany, where it's like the like lust and the fixation from some of these men is like a violent hatred as well. Like they don't just want her, they want to like hurt her. And like that is something like Fire even like thinks about how like that is like specifically something that happens with like female monsters. Like there is this extra layer of like danger for them that like even if I feel like even if Cantrell had been a much better person, he wouldn't have had to deal with that in the same way.
Yeah. Because not being female, he wouldn't have been so much the blame of,
that's interesting.
She says something about that at one point. She talks about why is it always rape, which I thought was really interesting, where she was saying like why do men's anger and violence result in rape? Like what is it that which I thought was really interesting. Just to bring it to the fore and just sort of put it there on page, like why is this like rape is not, like you hear people talk about like, well, why did she wear that, or why did la 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 about sexual desire. It's not about power. It's about
power. Well, and I like that she sort of explicitly draws those lines, that it's about control, it's about anger and power, and not really about just like desire, like like wanting to have sex with somebody. Again, I just feel like this book, the conversations it's having was so ahead of its time in terms of like what most people in the culture were talking about, and certainly for YA. Like this barely reads like YA. I mean, like teenagers could read it, but like it feels quite mature, and the characters are older and read as quite mature.
Even like the stage of their life, it feels like they're at. Like, I mean, Fire is realizing that she feels like she can never have children. And like that is something that just like from a life stage perspective, I feel like normally wouldn't be explored as much in YA.
No.
So even though she's like technically 17 or 18, it's like a weird book in terms of where it sits.
It honestly kind of makes me wonder if when she was publishing it, they didn't know what to do with it and it got published as YA, you know what I mean? Because like and I think these are not bad books for teenagers to read. Like I think there's a lot of great stuff happening in it, so I'm not like upset about that, but from a publishing perspective, it just makes me curious like what that like what happened.
Why would you
it's interesting.
It makes me think about like I think publishers have a really hard time with books that don't fit into categories neatly. Like I mean, unless you can come up with like a really clear cut like marketing pitch or like comp title or something, anything that's like doesn't really fit into preconceptions of age range or even like genre combinations. And I understand why, because like, if you're doing keyword searches or whatever, it's like there's not a lot of room for nuance there. But it's like this is one of those series that just makes me feel like this is like the system that whatever the system they're using is not a great one for anything that like, which a lot of books do. They have elements that kind of make them hard to like sum up like this. Cause I agree. I think that these are good books for young adults, for teens to read. And I think that the level of explicitness is like age appropriate as well. Like it deals with these heavy ideas, but not in like not with the level of detail you might get in a book for adults, but just like interesting.
But I feel like adults can read that. Like, like this is a book that it doesn't feel particularly YA. It feels more like general fantasy that is appropriate for teenagers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, which is a different thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you, Jessica.
I feel like more publishing should be focused on.
Yeah, well, actually, on the cover of this one, it says Cashore will slake the thirst of Twilight fans, and I think it said the same thing on Graceling.
It's because of when they came out.
Yeah, it's YA and it's when they came out. But I'm like, I mean, first of all, it's fantasy as against whatever Twilight
paranormal
romance. If you could get Twilight fans reading this series, like, please, give them all of the context on consent and then healthy relationships. Like, great.
And also, like, it's just we were talking about, you know, YA versus what is it, and like the fact that if I had a 17-year-old daughter, or a 17-year-old person, a child, I would be so much more. I'd be like, yes, read this. No, you can't read Twilight. Like, I mean, I know you can't really tell a 17-year-old what they can and can't read, but like, a 12-year-old kid, I'm gonna be like.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how I read Twilight in like middle school or like early high school. Like,
oh man.
Yeah,
I was in college when I read Twilight, but also I'm older, I think, so that's part of why.
Yeah, I was in my early 20s or mid 20s when I read Twilight, and I think the person that was like, you should read this, it's amazing, had read it when she was in her teens, and so she was giving it to me, this is so good, you should read it, it's so romantic, blah blah blah, and I read it and I'm like, no, it's not. This is like, do you understand what you read? Like, oh my god, this is not romantic. This is so bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if they're saying this is a good book for people that like Twilight, then like hopefully it's people who have read it that have read Twilight and have, like you said, been able to read books that are actually not horribly dysfunctional and toxic. Yeah.
I guess what I find interesting is how many people who read Fire back in the day seem to have like not understood what the project of the book was. I don't know. I just think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
I want to I'm trying to see if I can like find some of these, because I think there's a lot of focus on just like what the plot was, and I don't, and whether or not people liked it, and I feel like not a lot on like what this book was actually doing. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like some of the, like, if you read some of the like most liked low reviews for this, it's interesting. Okay. Can I
go for it?
Okay. This is one of the top rated reviews on it. It's 1 star.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Granted, I went into this book annoyed with Cashore's anti-marriage, pro-casual sex message in Graceling, but the book never got interesting enough to overcome those messages. I didn't finish this, but if 222 pages into it, I'm bored and nearly shaking with rage at Cashore for using a YA story as a thinly veiled piece of propaganda, I doubt the end of the book will redeem itself.
Wow.
They're saying, this isn't even YA, it's adult high fantasy, but it's sold as YA, where Cashore forces her stories around some unhealthy and harmful messages instead of letting her characters and story grow organically. The world is full of monsters, so beautiful people throw themselves at the monsters in lust, and monsters can control everyone's mind to make them do whatever they want. It was not a world I wanted to believe in. Etc. It's like...
Did we read the same book?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. It says Fire is too much like Katza, but less interesting, more whiny, and the whole society is more promiscuous. The book is congested with friends with benefits. A 17-year-old with a guy several years older than her she doesn't even like and knows he's sleeping with every other girl in the country. A whole society sleeping around and fathering illegitimate children all over the place. Lots of uncontrolled lust. People and animals throwing themselves at Fire because she's on her period.
Okay, but that's the point.
Yeah, I know. Right, from all that uncontrolled lust, murder, that whole village plunder and destroy stuff, and the happy mention of her father saying just because fire is beautiful, he would never act out on that lust because he loves her, so throw a little incest into the mix. I don't know of a single healthy relationship in the whole book, at least the part I got through, and the worst of all these things have nothing to do with the storyline. Anyway, so it's just like really interesting to me that I'm like, yes, that is all true, but like it's making a point.
Yeah.
And you are missing the point. But I don't know that you would agree with the point anyway, based on
well,
what
no,
I'm reading,
based on what, yeah.
Also, okay, so like there are books, I think, that like this frustrates me when I feel like a book it's like acting like it's doing commentary, but it's really just like reproducing the problem.
Yeah.
I think that's like a valid criticism to have,
Sure.
but not about this book. Like that
No.
that is not what it's doing. Like it's
No.
very clearly showing these things as bad things and like showing also like the like irresponsibility of like sleeping around and not caring who you hurt. That is shown to be bad. Like Archer is trash. Like we all know that. Like
yeah.
But
it's
again,
just interesting, like the idea that like because it's on the page, like why is she doing this? Clearly she thinks this is okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's that? No.
Right. Also call like that spider whiny? Like
yeah, she is so far from whiny.
Like she should complain a little more about
a little bit more, yeah.
Right?
I feel like what that person was doing was what we see so often, what we were just talking about, is they were putting it all on the woman and saying, this is a problem because this book talks about fire being promiscuous. And they were like, oh, well, you know, still sleeping with this guy who's sleeping around so much. But like, again, that it's her problem, not Archer's problem. That's what I got out of the review you just read. And I'm like, well, no, that's the entire point. Like, it's talking about that he made the problem and she's the one that's saying to him, not to the other girls that he's sleeping with, saying to him, you need to be careful. This is going to end badly. You need to watch what you're doing, kind of thing. And he's like, oh, it'll be fine because I'm a guy and everything's fine because I'm a guy. I don't have to take responsibility. I find it really interesting. That person seemed to, like you said, not just entirely misunderstand the point, but like specifically be against the whole concept of what they were doing.
Right. Well, and it's just interesting to me that as I scan through, like all the low rated reviews basically are like, there's too much sleeping around and like casual sex and like, or like, too much desire to sleep around and inability to stop it. Like, why is this necessary to the progression of the plot? I'm like, this is the whole point of the book. Like tackling rape culture is the whole point of the book. Okay, tell me you missed the point without telling me.
How to tell me? Yeah, exactly. How to tell me I didn't understand the book without telling me I didn't understand the book.
Like, if you don't want to read a book about that, like that's fair.
That's fine. Absolutely.
But it's not like you can't say that the book shows like harassment and assault and be mad at it just for showing that when like it is like criticizing those things. Like that's
right.
Really frustrating. No, also, I really love that Fire does not get upset, and like actually none of the women who Archer was being the worst to, like none of them blame each other. Like they're upset when they find out, but it's more, I don't know, just in general. I love like all the friendships between women here. I loved Fire realizing like just like getting to have women who are friends throughout this book like meant so much to me. Like when Archer's like, but why do you care? And she's like, because I have friends now. Like, I don't want you to hurt them.
Suddenly realized that you maybe aren't so much my friend if you don't want me to have friends. Like maybe it's not okay for you to actively be trying to stop people from being my friend. Yeah. We've just had a few comments from some people, so I might just quickly go through.
Go for it.
Yes, Jessica knew you were going to read that one. Hi, Tracy. That's okay. Welcome to the conversation. 48 when I read Twilight. Is there anything better than that? Apparently, yes. My mom was 54 when she read it.
Wow.
I loved Fire as a character, very different to what I'm used to. Yeah, she was very different. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to point out, because there is an author who writes reviews on Goodreads, and he is one of my favorite reviewers when he writes them, because they're all like so smart and good.
That's what we like.
Yeah, so Alexis Hall, who is a romance author, sometimes writes reviews for random books, and he wrote a review for Fire.
Mm-hmm.
And
he wrote the boyfriend.
Yes, boyfriend material.
Yeah.
Yes. He is like brilliant. His reviews are always just like really good. But he got it because he says, like, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he says, and Fire, let's face it, is basically about rape culture. I'm like, ding, ding, ding.
Yes, correct.
And he wrote that review in 2013. So I'm just saying, like, Alexis Hall knows what's up.
Yeah. Some people get it. Yeah.
He always has very insightful, smart reviews. So
okay, I'll have to have
someone worth following on Goodreads.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at following people on Goodreads or reviews in general.
I also like the way that consent and choice was talked about, including Fire's like mental abilities in a way that didn't feel like it was like replacing the conversation with assault. It was just like part of the wider, I guess, like discussion about like, you know, free will and choice and all of that. Like, I really appreciated that. I thought that was really well done, and how like Fire struggles so much with like not wanting to turn into her father. And then like there's a paragraph like right at the end of the book that's talking about how like she's learned that like killing her father was right and it was also wrong, but sometimes you have to do wrong things to stop like even more wrong from being done. And I feel like that's such a, again, like nuanced way to look at it, is like sometimes things you're doing are bad, but if you don't do them, it would be worse. And like, I don't know how you categorize that kind of ethical decision, but I like the way this book talked about that. Like her and Brian talk about that a lot.
It is the second book in the Graceling series. But the rest of the series, well, I only read the first three. The first three, this is the only one with Fire. I don't know if we go back to Fire at any point. We may do. Yeah. So the first one is Graceling.
I'm just like so pleasantly surprised by this series because it's just so good and so much better than I expected going in.
I'm glad. I hate for you to have agreed to do a read along and then be like,
I know.
What were you
I was
thinking?
a little bit nervous because I was like, why? I'm like, I hope I like these.
I mean, it would have been totally valid, obviously, to be like, no. But
no, they're really good though. I'm so glad that I'm reading them because I don't think I expected so much depth from these books.
I think again because they're like YA, but like almost because they're a certain time of YA, like they're 2000.
Yeah, they get kind of lumped together with.
Yeah. I just sort of assumed.
And I feel I feel like also when people do talk about these books, it's not so much focused on the really thoughtful things they do, which like I also, obviously I love the characters and I think the worlds are really interesting. Like I think there are things besides the themes that are really well done, but I feel like I don't hear too many reviewers, you know, even today talking about like, wow, this book really goes after rape culture in an incredibly thoughtful way, you know, like that's not, and maybe it's just that like people aren't necessarily reading these books as much now. I don't know what like I feel like there's a lot of people who have read them and enjoyed them, but not so much like talking about them recently, at least based on who I follow. I don't know if that's
true. Well, I don't know if a lot of people have reread them.
Right.
You know, since they came out. Like I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I loved those books back in the day. Yeah. But I think the context now is just very different.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm enjoying them even more this time around. And I think that is because I am older and I have more context. And I'm like, wow, these books really knew things. Like,
yeah, definitely. I agree.
Kristen Cashore was writing from the future here. Like,
seriously. Well, and that's the thing too, is I'm like, she had projects she wanted to tackle with these books. Like yeah, there were stories, but like she had big themes and that she was trying to get to.
I also, going back to one of those reviews that irritate us so much, I also really disagree with Fire being basically Katza. I think they're so different.
So different.
So different. Like, I appreciate that of the 3 books that I've read from this series before, I feel like there's a commonality in that all of these stories are like about the main female characters like accepting themselves and I don't know, like I feel like there are like common threads in their experiences, but like and you know, with agency and like getting to make their own decisions, but like the characters are not the same. Like Katza and Fire are very, very different.
Definitely.
In so many ways.
Yeah.
Jessica's mom is here
Hi,
as
Nora.
well. Hi. And apparently they both gave it 5 stars, which is awesome. Yay.
Great.
Yeah.
Also, I'm excited because I just got an email. They're sending me Sea Sparrow.
Yay.
Yay.
Oh my gosh.
That's exciting.
Yay.
No, I haven't really heard many people talk about them either. I did when Winterkeep came out, I think there was another group of booktubers who were talking about doing a read along, and that just for whatever reason they didn't end up doing it. But yeah, I haven't really heard anyone particularly talk about it. I do wonder if it is because they're older. But I mean, every time like someone like Sarah J. Maas or Leigh Bardugo release a new book, no matter how old the first sort of lot is, they're still, everyone's like, oh, so it's funny because these new ones are coming out. You'd think there'd be renewed interest, but
well, and I initially picked these up like years ago because Sam from Thoughts on Tomes talks about them a lot, and I feel like she'll still mention them because it was I think one of her favorite series, and so I knew. Like I remember her saying things that interested me in them, whatever they were. And I know there are some people who were still like reading them and talking about them, but like I really only knew about them because of her recommendation. And I looked at reviews. I'm like, people don't seem to like these books. At least like not the top liked reviewers seem to like these books. So I felt like I was like taking a chance on them, and I was like, these are really good.
They're really good.
Yeah, they're so well done.
They are.
Katza and Fire are very different. Way different in their personalities. I agree with that. And I don't think there's a problem in a series with people experiencing similar things. Like that's like there's only so much that you're going to experience in your life and the way you approach it that's going to be 100%. There's nothing that's going to be 100% different from other people's experience. It's just that obviously it is going to be different. So I think that it's fine that they do approach things differently, and they are different people. So,
and it's partly because I mean, I guess Fire, it's like set in a different region, kingdom. I don't know. But it's like Katza, Fire, and Bitterblue all are dealing with similar things, and that it's like their journey, I feel like, is about like agency and getting to make their own choices and dealing with other people trying to take that from them. But that is like such a general thing that it's like I don't think you can say that, oh, these characters are too much the same. It's also like for Katza and Bitterblue, like they live in the same society, so like they're probably going to be dealing with some of the same like cultural issues.
Yeah,
exactly. And like women do face a lot of similar things. I mean, there's a lot of different things because you aren't just a woman, so you also experience other things that whatever, but like just the actual fact of being a woman, a lot of what Fire is going through, you're going to experience to a greater or lesser extent, and a lot of what Katza goes through, and
Yeah, I mean, their personalities are different and some of the details are different, but yeah.
Yeah. And I actually think that's really interesting as opposed to what they said, which is, oh
That
no,
they're
it's
the same.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that she offers different ways of dealing with very similar things. Because what does that, a young women who are reading that, like, that's a good thing, right? Oh, well, that's not how I'm going to experience it.
Hopefully
Oh,
you
hang
can
on.
find somebody that you relate to. Or,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I gave it 4.5 stars. And I think it's partly because I feel like I'm very much a character-driven reader anyway, but I feel like it was much more character-driven than plot-driven, and I felt like it was a little bit slow, maybe. Yeah, but I don't know, like 4.5 that feels like 5. Does that make sense? Like there's so much in it.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, it is very character driven. Like, I mean, I like character driven, but this is very character driven. And I think I felt like the pacing was just kind of uneven for me.
Yeah.
Because like a lot happens so quickly at the end of the book.
Yeah, like a whole book.
It was like, it was like I was like slow, and then we're just
everything
gonna like
all
rush through the end. And yeah, I don't know. So like I didn't love it as much as the first book, or I didn't just like.
Sorry, everyone. Just
no.
So yeah, I don't know. Like I didn't enjoy the story and the plot as much, I think, as I did Graceling, or find it as compelling. But I just thought the project was so good and so well done.
Yeah, definitely agree.
So. And I think part of it for me too, that I was a little more forgiving, even though I did definitely notice the slower parts and that did affect my feelings. I think I loved Fire and most of the other characters that we spent a lot of time with so much that I'm like, I'm kind of bored when I'm bored with people I like. So that's okay. Like, I think I would have felt that like the parts that dragged a lot more if I had been less invested in the characters. But so I think that helped, but
I can see that.
Yeah, definitely.
Jessica, yes,
Jessica,
Baby Luck was very creepy. So
creepy. And
I remember that from the first time.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think I told you guys last time I read them the wrong order. So I read Graceling, Bitter Blue, and then Fire. So there's some stuff that I was like, when I was reading Fire, I was like, oh. So I'm very interested to see, Bethany, what you think of Bitter Blue, because there's some stuff in Bitter Blue that is, that you kind of go, oh, hang on. Right, that's what that was all about because of Fire. Which,
okay.
But yeah, he was a very. I actually found it really, because in Graceling you obviously see when he's grown up and gone back and what happens as an adult, and but he was a horrible, weird, creepy child. Like
from the time he was born,
when he was like,
he was an evil toddler too.
Yeah. Which is like, because I've always been a little bit more on the side of like nurture. Like, yes, there's nature. Like, there's obviously, people have inherited whatever, but surely a lot of more of it is how you are, the interactions you have when you're I'm more of a nurture versus nature in that debate. So it's interesting to see.
Yeah, something.
I mean, I kept thinking, man, I really wish he had a therapist to get him on some medication.
But I mean, like, I do wonder if you grew up like, because it did seem like immediately he was like the minute he was born, he was weird and creepy.
Well, I mean, I think he was. I mean, like it feels like a magical version of, like a sociopath.
Yeah.
Sort of,
But I do wonder, like, if you grow up and you just, like, from the minute you can talk, people will do what you want. Like, imagine a toddler going, like, saying, give me that, whatever. being able to say, give me those lollies or whatever it is they want, and the parent just capitulating and giving it to like.
But we also see Fire, like she had a very similar kind of experience, but in a different way, and she turned out completely different. You know, like, and she's afraid the whole time that she's going to become like her father or like Lex. So like, I think even in this book we do see that there is still an element of choice. You know, like I do think that having that kind of power would be definitely like a difficult thing to resist, but it is possible to resist it, you know?
I feel like the biggest thing is that he lacks empathy, which is like, you know, I mean, to me is more of a, you know, a mental health disorder that can be helped with certain kinds of therapy, which obviously in this fantasy world are not available.
Lek needs a therapist.
I mean, exactly. That's why I bring back to I'm like, oh baby Lek.
Yeah.
Your life would be so much better if you had a child psychologist helping you out and giving you some medication.
Preferably one that was immune to
the magic. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If Poe had have been...
If Poe was a child psychologist...
they would have been fine.
From a different generation.
That should be the teaser we use to advertise this live show afterwards. If Poe was a child psychologist, like...
Someone should write fanfic where like Poe is the child psychologist for Lek, and like, you know, things work out better for everyone.
Yes. Maybe that's my NaNoWriMo project.
There you go.
I mean, that would have solved a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I do tend to be a bit more of the like, really? We're gonna kill a poor innocent little baby? But I mean, sorry, Bethany.
You're fine. I mean, I think that's the impulse, but part of me is always like, I don't know. I guess I just have mixed feelings about this kind of depiction of evil children in books and media, because I think usually what makes them evil is a disorder that like people have that are not necessarily evil, who can be treated and live like fine lives with the correct care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess I'm just like, I'm always like a little uncomfortable with that.
Well, again, going back to the nature versus nurture, like even if it is your nature, you can still have interactions that will alter the way that your nature, the way that you, I mean, that's the thing, like you were saying, that's what Fire is
that's
doing.
The thing is, like,
well.
trauma and nurture can exacerbate already existing tendencies. So I mean, they do know that you can have like a tendency towards something, and then certain kinds of trauma can trigger it, or like certain kinds, actually even like certain kind of substance abuse can trigger things. It's interesting. It's like,
yeah, which makes sense.
I do think, I'm trying to remember from if this actually happened in the book, but I thought there was like some conversation between Lek and Fire where it didn't seem to me like just that, Lek can't feel empathy, but like he specifically enjoys hurting people and things, which I feel like is maybe separate, but I also don't know very much about those kinds of disorders.
But yeah, I mean, that is like a lack of empathy. I mean, that's
okay. So it's
like, because if you do, I mean, like they can go hand in hand, but like if it goes bad, not having empathy can
okay,
because that's what they do say.
It's like serial killers as children, sort of.
So they say like, well, I think they've just gotten rid of sociopath as a but psychopath, I think, is what a lot of the thing is, the lack of empathy for.
Fair enough, Jessica. I can't escape it.
But I thought it was interesting, like you said, Cara, that like we do have the comparison between Fire is also grows up with this amazing power, and with a father who abuses that power. I mean, also she has, you know, her stepfather, I guess you would call Archer's father, whose name I've totally forgotten. But yeah, like it's interesting because Lek and her are like the opposite of what happens when you grow up with those powers. But again, I wonder like how much you could argue like the you know, the therapy, the nurture what happens around you, because he, for a long time, he grew up with just the father who he had already under his thrall from the beginning.
Right.
Thank you, Jessica. Antisocial personality disorder.
Thank you. Yes. I knew that I wasn't naming the right thing, but I wasn't sure what we don't actually have a Discord.
Well, actually,
unless you're meaning...
So there is a thread in my Discord for the read along.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
So the read along doesn't have a Discord itself, but Bethany's Patreon has a Discord.
Well, and so my Discord is open. Like some of the channels are patron only, and some of them are public. So if you join my Discord, I think the Graceling one I believe is public. Let me double check that.
I get confused with Discords that have different aspects.
I can just change the permissions on different threads. So yeah, the Graceling Readalong is public. So if you join my Discord, you can chat in there if you want.
I'm just trying to see if I can send an invite to and put it in the sorry everyone. See if I can put it in the channel link. Where am I?
I might have to let me see.
Where am I? Okay, I think this will work.
I can, if you want, Mel, I can just send you a link that I have.
Oh, okay. Hopefully I've put one in there, and it was for the Graceling Realms, so hopefully that will work. I have to use my phone to do that because for some reason my computer never wants to go to Discord.
Yeah, and if that doesn't work, this one should. If it goes, I don't know if it'll go through though, because it's not my channel. So I'll just send it to you in the private chat if you want to post it.
Cool.
It's another one that should work.
All right. Let's see. There we go. Yes. So thank you for doing that, Bethany. Also.
Yeah.
Putting it in your Discord.
I think somebody had asked about it, and I was like, yeah, let me just make a thing for people who want to.
Yeah, it was a good idea. I probably should have made one for the thing, but there is one now. So
April. Oh, good. It worked because I see April.
Oh, awesome.
In the Discord now. So cool.
Welcome to... Welcome to the Discord where that's not even my Discord.
Yeah, I can never remember if people can actually see the locked channels, but yeah, like some of them are open and some of them are not. It just varies, but yep.
I just assume that I can't see the ones that I don't have access to.
You should. I mean, you have access to almost all of them, I think.
Yeah, I think I have. I don't know.
Yeah,
I have access to a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I think there's only one that you probably don't have access to. So,
okay, cool. But yes, this is the non-locked Patreon one.
Yes,
so anyone can join. Although you know, if you wanted to become a patron of Bethany's, then maybe you should do that too because it's awesome.
It's fun.
It's lots of fun. I'm terrible at Discord, but
me too.
I know. I'm not like the best at it, but I try. Yeah. No, but it's it's fun. We're reading I love how like both of you are like part of my Patreon.
This is the Beautifully Booked Bethany Patreon small group meeting.
Yeah.
We're reading the Hollow Places this month.
Yeah.
So, if anyone wants to join.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, yeah.
So I kind of feel like we might have discussed everything, well, that I particularly wanted to discuss. Do you guys have anything else that you...
I'm trying to think if I had anything else. I think we talked about most of it.
I think, okay, so this is like literally on the last page. I just want to read that like paragraph we were talking about like responsibility and ethics and making bad choices. She understood now that while it had been wrong to kill Cantrell, it had also been right. The boy with the strange eyes had helped her to see the rightness of it. The boy who'd killed Archer. Some people had too much power and too much cruelty to live. Some people were too terrible, no matter if you loved them. No matter that you had to make yourself terrible too in order to stop them. Some things just had to be done. I forgive myself, thought Fire. Today I forgive myself.
So powerful.
Yeah.
I love watching Fire forgive herself.
I know, it's really good. Oh yeah, Briggan as a father, I do like that also.
Yeah, definitely.
But this is also part of why it doesn't really read like YA.
Yeah.
Like, it's, like these are very mature characters with mature-ish like life things to deal with.
I kind of got the feeling too that the setting of the Dells, for whatever reason, people did tend to have children younger. Like that wasn't like an unusual thing necessarily, but definitely not something you see in a lot of books in this age range.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really liked him as a father.
I just liked him in general.
Yeah.
I liked him as a character a lot.
I liked that he, like, there was no, I'm the man, so therefore I don't have to be the parent. Like, he obviously had to have someone to ultimately be the primary carer because he also had other, responsibility as who he was to the kingdom and whatnot. But like whenever he came back, he went straight to her. He didn't, I just thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I also got that feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was nothing about her being illegitimate and having to, she wasn't fit chivalry. Like, they didn't have to make her an assassin and hide her away. And which I thought was really nice as well. And I like that she really seemed comfortable as who she was, and that Briggan was her father, and she didn't have to, there was no sense that she felt like she had to, pretend that she wasn't, or like that she didn't know her dad, or anything like that, which I thought was interesting.
I really liked that even though Briggan is this military leader who obviously, does a lot of like bad or unpleasant, violent things, he's not at all like an alpha male kind of thing. Like, I really like that even when he's standing up for Fire, it was never in a way, I don't know how to explain it, but like, I feel like sometimes in books, there's these scenes that are supposed to be romantic where the hero is like, how dare you lay a hand on my woman? And it's like, just weird feeling. Like, and I really appreciate that here it was like, he did stick up for her. He did defend her, but it wasn't in a way that like objectified her. Yeah. There was like no toxic masculinity. And I love that. Like, I think that's just what I love about Kristen Cashore's men. Like,
yeah.
That the ones you're supposed to like are not toxic Yes, I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Yeah. And I like that there is such a comparison as well. Like Archer, in a way, Archer is still portrayed as like a lot of different men in other books and other shows are portrayed when they are the likable characters.
Right.
Like, you're supposed to like Archer, but you don't.
No.
And it partly is in comparison to Briggan, but it doesn't have to be either. It's just like, because that's something I hate as well. Like, oh, look, he's a great guy because he's not like these other really awful guys.
Right.
Yeah, but he's still
like the
treating her badly. Like,
yes.
But just because the bar's so low doesn't mean we have to say, oh, isn't he amazing because he did, you know, the classic thing of like he did one bit of parenting. Right. Oh, I love, like, my partner is so amazing. He looks after the kid. No, he doesn't.
Like, they're his
he's not babysitting.
Like,
it's
like they're his children. He's parenting.
Yeah. And even like the scene where
my partner is babysitting, and I'm like, oh my God,
it's not babysitting when they're yours.
Okay, you know what's funny? I was telling my husband this the other night because I read this article. I've seen a couple articles like this recently, but I was reading this article in the New York Times that was talking about, like, especially since the pandemic, that there's all these women who have, like, with children who've been getting divorced and are much happier after getting divorced because, like, they carried, it's like the first time they feel like their husband is doing his share of, like, childcare and house care because he has to, because they have like half 50% custody. And I just told me, I was like, you know what, like, we are clearly doing something right, because like, you know what I mean, because I'm like, we just do that and don't have to get divorced to make it happen. Like, anyway, so it's interesting to me though. Like, it makes sense that you would be happier if you were doing everything.
If you're not if there's not an expectation as well that you'll just do everything without any sense that that's still, like, you still work, that you're still doing something.
I think it tends to be so devalued. The article was interesting because it mentioned how there's a lot of same-sex couples who have found their way to a more equal playing field where, like, people take the tasks they're good at or enjoy doing and, like, kind of make it more fair. And she was like, hopefully, like, she was like, you know, I'm happier divorced, but, like, I don't think everyone should have to get divorced to make this happen. And I was like, so,
oh boy.
And what does that say as well? Like, if the partner gets into another relationship, are they just going to fall back into that same habit? Like, I'm only doing this because I have to. And
I don't know. I mean, it makes me wonder, like, if it makes them realize how much work it really was, maybe. I just think it's so interesting because I remember when I first got married and had my first baby and stuff, like, the number of young moms I knew who I was like, why do you put up with this?
Yeah. But it is, like we were saying before, like, with the way this book portrays Archer and his, like, going into abuse, it's like people don't necessarily start out that way. And like, but is it also the expectation? Like, we grew up in a society that undervalues parental work, undervalues housework because it's women's work, and they just think, that's normal.
Well, and I think sometimes there's women who get married, and because they don't have kids yet, they're like, yeah, sure, I'll be the wife and do all the things and it's fine. And then don't think about the fact that, like, if you set that as a precedent, when you have a child, like, that's still going to be the way your household functions. Whereas I was like, when we got married, I was like, we are going to split up chores and like, which, like, my husband's great and was like, yeah, cool, because, like, he has parents who also, you know, like, pretty evenly split stuff. So for him, that was like, yeah, of course, that's normal, which is great. How it works. But, like, like, that has to be something that should be something I think you set as a precedent early in a relationship.
Yeah. And I appreciate how in the book too, it was even in, like, smaller ways, like, kind of like we're saying with, like, obviously you don't see all these things from the beginning, that's what makes it so insidious, but like, even stuff with Archer where I mean, in a way this isn't a little thing, but when he would say things like if anyone touches you, I will, like, shoot him through the head or something, and that's supposed to be, like, romantic, and in some books that is shown as romantic. And, like, comparing that with the scene where Brigand stops two soldiers from fighting because of her, like, I can't articulate why it feels so different, but it feels so different. Like, I just that's just such good writing to me. Like, so much subtlety in
absolutely.
That's good.
And really drawing attention to when there is toxic masculinity, why it's toxic and what it is, that it's happening. I think that's like why I struggle a little bit with romance, and I think it's probably the romance I'm reading as opposed to like all romance is bad, but I just struggle with that normal of, oh well, like how normal men are portrayed when it's like that shouldn't be the norm though. Like that whole concept of, you know, he's good because like he does the bare minimum of what
you know what you need to read? You need to read this series.
Okay, I have been hearing a lot about that series recently.
They're so good. And her men are wonderful.
Okay.
And she has like really good fat rep that is like well done without being fetishizing.
Mm-hmm.
And like great guys, great characters. Like they feel like people and they're wonderful. Anyway, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm excited to read that
I'm getting into like slowly finding the stuff that I like.
I think that's the thing with romance. Like, honestly, there's a lot of big popular authors that I like, especially contemporary authors that I don't read. Like, you won't see me reading a lot of the like big popular ones because I find the authors who write what I like to read in romance, and I read that. And you know, I think, but there's something. The nice thing is there is something for everybody, and
yeah. I mean, it's the same with anything, isn't it? Really, like you can say the same about fantasy, whatever. Yeah.
But I love Olivia Dade. Also, I'm probably especially thinking about it because we just got to interview her. Yeah, me and Izzy for the Chapter 3 podcast. So like it's coming in November. I'm so excited. It was great. It was like a really good conversation.
Cool. Okay. Olivia
Sorry,
Dade.
I'm going off on a lot of tangents.
No, I love it.
That's good.
And I feel like a lot of them actually circle back to the discussion.
Yeah, so exactly. Absolutely.
We're right on topic.
Because this also has such a good romance with, you know, like legitimate equal. I feel like they were
like partnership.
Equal. Yeah.
That's what I like to see. Yeah.
Yes.
And you don't get the, like we were saying before about Briggan still going off, like he still is going to go off and do all the things he has to do. You don't get the sense that it's going to be.
Yeah. And he won't stop Fire from doing what she needs to do and wants to do. Like, I mean, again, to compare Briggan and Archer, like Archer is so angry when she does that thing that gets the army, you know, like she like runs out to distract the raptors, and Archer is so like possessive about it, like that she risked herself when he should have been able to prevent her. And Fire's like, well, it's my life to risk. So, and like, whereas with Briggan, it's like when she's explaining why she would be the best assassin, he's like, okay, I'll help you do this. Like, like, not to say that I don't think, like, I think that they should still be able to like take care of each other. Like when Fire's like, okay, you want to do a favor for me? Take a guard with you when you wander around at night. And he's like, ugh, fine.
But it's like they like respect each other's ability to, you know, it's not like you're a woman, you can't do this.
Yeah. And I like that he still was able to present like, I'm worried about you and I would prefer if you didn't do this because of these concerns, but you're right, you are the best person to do it. So how about if I step in and actually help you, like you said, because, you know, then I can assuage my own worry. Like, and it wasn't even, then I can protect you because I'm the big, it was like, then I can know for myself that I'm keeping you as safe as I can. Yeah.
And really, like, another way that they're well matched is they both have very dangerous existences. So I feel like they're kind of like Archer, I feel like could never accept that Fire was extremely competent and like, yes, she is in danger, but she is an intelligent person who is capable of doing things for herself. Whereas with Briggan, he not only understands that, but like the two of them also understand that even though they hate it, the other person is going to be in danger a lot. And like, not that that's a good thing, but I feel like they know there's no way, like she can't talk him out of like always going where the most danger is because that's just the kind of person he is. And likewise with Fire is like, she is a very like compassionate and selfless person, but in a way that she's learning not to be like, not to erase that she also can be happy and like want things. So it's like they're both going to continue to put themselves in danger for the good of others, and they understand that about each other.
Yeah. And I guess also like she's because being a monster, like she is going to be in danger because of the way that works. And he can't always be there. So he just has to trust that she knows how to protect herself as well.
Yeah, like they worry about each other, but not in a way that's like, I should get to make these decisions for you.
Right.
Yeah. And I like that it shows that you can express concern for someone without trying to take over their autonomy.
Yes.
I am worried about you doing this thing for these reasons, but like
no, absolutely. Yeah, like, hey, I'm concerned. Can we have a conversation about this instead of like, if you do this, I'm going to do whatever I can to stop you. You know, like it's like two very different things.
I mean, also, apart from anything else, with someone like Fire, like, isn't that the best way to make sure she does do this?
She's like very sneakily stubborn. Like she's
and you're just defeating your own wish there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not very good negotiating to order Fire around. Like
no.
She's like, I will die doing this thing now. Okay. Like,
right. It's on.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, every time I say, like, this happens with Graceling as well, every time I say, like, I think we've discussed everything, we're like, but wait,
there's more.
Much more. I thought we had 2, but it turns out, which is awesome. I love that about these books.
Yeah.
But yes, does everyone feel that we have discussed everything? Does everyone?
I think all the things that I was thinking about specifically.
Yeah.
Awesome. Does anyone in the comments want to make a final? Well, I say final, like, we can keep talking. Well, actually, I have a friend coming around at 2, so we can keep talking for another 20 minutes.
Okay.
But I just feel like we might be wrapping up a bit.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what Bitterblue does. Yes.
I loved her
I
guards.
liked the guards.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I did too.
Really cool.
And just how thoughtfully they were chosen.
Yes.
Definitely.
And just, like, again, seeing Fire make friends with women when she didn't grow up having that. Just like,
so good. Yeah.
So happy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When she tells Mila, she's like, I need to tell you something really important. And she's like, what is it? She's like, you can always ask me for anything. And I'm like,
oh, so
everybody
lovely.
was just so supportive.
I love it.
Definitely.
That's good.
Excited for Bitterblue.
Yeah,
next up is Bitterblue. So the next live show for Bitterblue, I'm just looking at my
November 4th and I guess 5th for you.
Yes.
Is the next live
so
show.
it's the same time it's actually, I think, the same time next time for everyone. So 12 p.m. for Australians and 6 p.m. for PDT. Now that's isn't it?
EDT would be 6. Oh wait,
no,
she's I was looking at the wrong thing.
She's right.
The wrong thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mel.
Yeah.
No, that's right, because I did have it wrong the first when I made my announcement video, and then I had to be like,
so 6
p.m. PDT, 9 p.m. EDT.
Yes, because it's right before. It's like the before the weekend that we do our time change. So no time change yet.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And we have changed. We've gone into daylight saving.
Okay.
So
sounds good.
Brigham did choose well.
And then we're taking December off.
Yes.
And then January for Seasparrow. Yay! Which is exciting.
So exciting.
Is it Winterkeep before that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Winterkeep we read in November and discuss the first weekend of December.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I have these dates in my phone, and yet...
No, it's fine.
Thank you for that.
Which I'm kind of... It's going to be great. December is going to be probably when I rush to finish my challenges for the year because I suddenly don't have as much to read for Readalong.
Yes. I think Margaret from the Word Nerd is planning to do her reading wrap-up again, which is kind of like geared towards like finishing up things you need to do. So
that's a good idea.
That's smart.
That's a
yeah.
good idea.
So if you're looking for a readathon focused on, oh no, I have to I have to catch up. I usually do that one.
That's smart.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I think it's Haley from Haley in Bookland who does like she does the whole vlogmas thing, whatever. And I think she like basically reads from November to November is actually her reading year, because then she does all of her
I think Mara does that too.
Yeah.
It
would throw off my planning brain too much, but I understand why people do it.
Like I keep every year I'm like, maybe I should do that, but then I'm like, no, I can't, because you know what? Last year, one of my favorite things of the year I read on New Year's Eve.
That happens to me almost every year. Or I think was it last year? I read one of my most disappointing books on New Year's Eve, and I'm like, I'm gonna need to bitch about this.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not waiting an entire year. Yeah, I just can't.
I have feelings now.
100%. So yeah, I can't do that, but
I understand it, but yeah, I'm the same.
Right.
Like, the year
I respect it.
like,
I can't relate, but
yes, same. Oh, and then we have our little Patreon readathon in January.
Yes. Yay! So you can finish strong and start strong.
It's gonna be
great.
It'll be great. It's gonna be fun.
It'll be awesome.
Yeah. All right. So we will see you guys for Bitter Blue.
Yeah, see you for Bitter Blue. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Like I said before at the beginning, if you are new to the lovely people that have joined me, then please subscribe to their channels and join Bethany's Patreon if you're in the mood for Patreon.
If you're so inclined.
And if you haven't been here with me before, then please subscribe to me as well. But yeah, thank you so much for joining, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.